Welcome to Key Tech. Please describe this channel if you are interested in today's video. The 67th General Conference of the International Atomic Energy Agency was full of controversy due to geopolitics. This year, a Chinese representative was invited to speak. Based on the cooperation results of the International Atomic Energy Agency in recent years, he singled out Japan for its discharge of nuclear wastewater. This speech attracted global attention and discussion, and Japan made a rebuttal during its turn to speak. The controversy at this conference has caused people to reflect on the impartiality and transparency of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and forced countries to consider how to respond to Japan's behavior of ignoring the demands of its neighbors. Criticism of Japan's discharge of nuclear wastewater. In his speech at the conference, the Chinese representative bluntly criticized Japan's irresponsible behavior on the issue of discharging nuclear wastewater. The representative of China pointed out that Japan failed to provide a reliable explanation to the international community, and that their actions lacked transparency and openness. The Chinese representative called on the International Atomic Energy Agency to establish a long-term and effective international monitoring mechanism, and urged the agency to maintain open, transparent, and inclusive communication with all member states. At the same time, Chinese representatives also severely criticized the private grant-making behavior between Japan and the agency secretariat. Japan's rebuttal and response. Japanese Representative Takaichi Sanai responded to the criticism of the Chinese representative during his turn of speeches. She said that the International Atomic Energy Agency had released the Fukushima report in July, and many countries had expressed support for it. She accused China of having no scientific basis and urged them to stop spreading false information. However, the concept of privatization stems from an act that deviates from impartiality. It would be obviously unfair if the IAEA did not make its decisions public to every member state, but only consulted with a few countries. In addition, the Fukushima nuclear contaminated water report did not receive unanimous consent from all participating experts, nor did it fully absorb the opinions of all member states. It was funded by institutions in the United States, Europe, Canada, Australia and other countries, which further proves that private information the existence of giving and receiving. Reflect on the role and shortcomings of the International Atomic Energy Agency. At this conference, the naming and criticism of the Chinese representative and the rebuttal from Japan aroused people's attention and discussion on the International Atomic Energy Agency. As a nuclear monitoring organization with 177 member states, the International Atomic Energy Agency should maintain fair, transparent, and responsible behavior. However, in handling the Fukushima nuclear contaminated water issue, the agency's approach exposed its lack of scientific basis, ignoring the opinions of member states and private acceptance. This makes people start to think about why the International Atomic Energy Agency needs to find the reasons within itself and think about how to improve its operations amid the crisis of arrears, disputes and damage to its reputation. Coping with Japan's behavior and future prospects. The Chinese representative's speech at the conference was not only a criticism of Japan, but also an appeal to the global community. The Chinese representative's proposal to establish a long-term and effective international monitoring mechanism and maintain open, transparent and inclusive communication applies not only to Japan, but also to other countries. In the future, the international community should strengthen review and restrictions on the import of Japanese products, and expose and urge Japan's behavior on international platforms. This will not only protect the domestic environment and people's health, but also prompt Japan to rethink their behavior and adopt a more responsible attitude. At the 67th General Conference of the International Atomic Energy Agency, Chinese representatives bravely made a voice for neighboring countries and the entire international community, severely criticizing Japan for its discharge of nuclear wastewater. The speech attracted widespread attention and discussion, and also forced the International Atomic Energy Agency to face up to problems in its operations. China needs to think about how to improve the transparency, impartiality, and responsiveness of the International Atomic Energy Agency, and strengthen the international community's exposure and sanctions of controversial behaviors. Only in this way can China protect the global environment and human security. The Japanese government seems to have turned a deaf ear to the strong dissatisfaction of the international community. They insist that the discharge of nuclear-contaminated water is an inevitable choice, and try to solve the problem through dialogue and cooperation. However, even Japan's own neighbor South Korea expressed strong protest and opposition to Japan's behavior. South Korean people took to the streets one after another to carry out continuous protests, and some even went on a hunger strike for more than 20 days. The latest survey shows that 72.4% of adult respondents in South Korea opposed Japan's discharge of nuclear-contaminated water. They were angry at the words and deeds of the Japanese government and expressed dissatisfaction with the South Korean government's behavior in protecting Japan. China's firm stance on this incident has also been supported by the Korean people. 71.6% of the respondents expressed their appreciation for China's move to suspend the import of Japanese aquatic products. 78.3% of the respondents believed that South Korea should also learn from China and treat Japan a ban is imposed on aquatic products. Many respondents also said that they would boycott Japanese-related products, no longer buy Japanese goods, and even refuse to travel to Japan. This series of protests and public voices once again illustrate the international community's strong dissatisfaction with Japan's discharge of nuclear-contaminated water. The Japanese government seems to be ignoring the anger and protests of the international community. They would rather continue to act in their own way than reflect on their mistakes. They regard Japan's sea discharge as a diplomatic strategy, trying to resolve the dissatisfaction of the international community and neighboring countries through dialogue and cooperation. However, it turns out that this action did not play any positive role, but further weakened Japan's image and reputation in the international community. Japan's emission policymakers and leaders should realize that their actions will cost Japan and pin Japan firmly on the pillar of shame in history. Only when Japan truly realizes this and takes concrete actions to correct its mistakes can it win the forgiveness and respect of the international community.